We just had like YouTube videos taken down that have been up for 3 years. They didn't really even tell us we violated any of their guidelines other than we're in the firearms business. I said, let's show people having fun at the range. I'm like, let's market that experience. Who doesn't want to have a Saturday morning out there with their grandson or granddaughter? The first box we have to check is that it's going to make a better product. Everything has to start with performance. If it's not going to improve, enhance performance, it's a no-go. When it comes to the assembly and the building of our firearms, once you teach somebody that cutting corners is acceptable one place, you're lowering the standard of what you'll allow. When somebody starts building a rifle or pistol, they build it from start to finish. Whoever built that or assembled it has to sign their name to it. So there's some accountability there.
Cool. What's a firearm myth that drives you absolutely nuts? Welcome to the Founderz Lounge, where business meets bullshit and everything in between.
Yep. What's up,
guys? Welcome back to the Founderz Lounge. We have a very good friend of mine on the show today. He's been on the podcast before. He was on the Clean Truth. Man, Scott, what was that, 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago?
I think it has to be. Yeah, something like that.
It was a while back. But Mr. Scott Volquartsen from Volquartsen Arms. How you doing, man?
I am good. How are you guys doing? Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, of course. I've kind of repositioned the podcast from what Clean Truth was to Founderz Lounge and kind of really tried to hone in on getting business owners in to talk about their actual business on top of the cool stories that they've had and that they've lived through. So we've had a really good experience with it so far. So
awesome. So
I guess let's just start with, talk about who you are and Volquartsen Arms as a company and kind of set the tone for your business, your company.
Yeah, I'm a second generation owner. My dad started the business. It's been through a few different transitions, everything from Tom's Gun Bluing to Volquartsen Custom. And then back in 2018, we kind of narrowed that focus to Volquartsen Firearms. And he was more of a one-man shop, and he ran it up until the early 2000s. And my brother and I took over, and we've ran it since then. We specialize in everything, basically rimfires. So we have a very niche product that we work on.
Okay.
And it's one of those things we've always been asked when we're going to expand, how we're going to expand. But we've been in a unique situation. We've been able to expand, but stay in the same, same specific area of the industry.
Meaning rimfire.
Yes.
Yeah. Can you just explain that? I mean, I know what it is, and a lot of gun enthusiasts that'll listen to this know what that is, but for the ones that don't.
Yeah, the easiest way to explain it is rimfire is a smaller caliber. The primer is set in the outside of the rim of the cartridge versus most cartridges have a center fire, which the primer is in the dead center, just like it says in the back of the cartridge. And that allows the center fire that you can have larger calibers because it can withstand more chamber pressures and different things that way, where the rimfire is kind of limited in that. And for those that are somewhat familiar, rimfire is something you're not going to reload. You're just going to buy that off the shelf. Where center fire, you can reload, and there's a lot more variety of ammunitions and different things out there.
So one of the questions that I had, I don't know if I asked this years ago when we were talking to you, and it has since kind of evolved in the few years since you were on the show last. Like, the firearms industry became way more competitive now than what it probably ever has been. And so kind of what role in craftsmanship is the word I'm going to use, play in like separating Volquartsen from other companies that you compete against? Because my opinion, and I'm biased because we're buddies, but also I pay attention, like some of the craftsmanship that goes into some of your stuff is second to none, man. There's nobody else that does some of the things that you do. It's just awesome.
I think a lot of that, part of it has become so competitive because I think the barrier to entry can be a little bit less. It's easier to reverse engineer products. There's more software out there. There's a lot of 3D printing that's taking place now. And everybody has access to the same machines, the same equipment. But I always tell people, I think where some of that craftsmanship comes from is the people that we're very fortunate to have that run our machines and assemble our stuff. It's done in a certain way, because you have the same you may have the same horizontal machining center as the next company. There's still ways that you try to cut some companies will try to cut corners. They get a little bit more tool life. They'll do this or do that because it increases efficiency, which is obviously a good thing. But also we found sometimes when we try to become more efficient or the latest technology, it actually sets us back in the quality. And because we do everything in-house, or almost everything in-house, we outsource very little. It also allows us to adjust on the fly. So we're very open to customer feedback. If we hear something like, hey, why are you doing this? We're seeing this. We'll go out in the shop and test it that day. And we have to fix it. We'll do it on the fly. And then when it comes to the assembly and the building of our firearms, I think the easiest way to explain that is we get asked a lot of times why we don't build like an economy line or an entry level line. And my answer to that is once you teach somebody that cutting corners is acceptable one place, how do you ingrain in them that just because it's more expensive, now we're going to do it a different way? And they may or may not, but to me, you're lowering the standard of what you'll allow. And over time, I feel like that economy line and your higher end line are going to meld together. So
no, I agree. We had a friend of mine that I went to high school with on the show a few weeks ago, and the episode actually hasn't aired yet, but he's in the art world, right? And all of his stuff is custom. Cody.
Yeah.
And I asked him this question, and I'll ask it to you. The name of the game is craftsmanship. So how do you scale that, right, without losing that quality? I don't know because I'm not in that world, but like keeping craftsmanship as high as you want to, how do you scale that?
It can be tough. And part of that is we'll still do things even from a manufacturing side that we know maybe aren't the most efficient, but we have to get the end result that we're looking for. So the other thing, and this is what makes it tough to scale, is we don't have like assembly lines, assembling all of our trigger guards and then one area assembling all of our bolts and then another line putting those all together. We have, when somebody starts building a rifle or pistol, they build it from start to finish. And then the one thing we started doing a few years ago is we send a certificate of authenticity card with that firearm where whoever built that or assembled it has to sign their name to it. So there's some accountability there.
Cool. That's really cool.
And it allows us to, fortunately, we haven't had this, but if all of a sudden we start seeing a lot of issues and we start asking, okay, who signed your card? It's a very cut and dry conversation of, okay, nobody else's name is coming up. Yours has come up 4 times this week. And again, we're very fortunate to have great people that work for us, which I think is the other half of that. You have to have the right mindset. Because my dad kept it to be a very small family-owned business just because he didn't trust anybody outside the family. So our challenge has been, how do we keep that family pride or environment, but yet scale it with employees outside the family?
Talk about establishing a sense of ownership within the operation that you're signing your name off on the final product.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's pretty cool, man.
And it does 2 things. It's ownership, but then it also gives them a sense of pride when a customer emails back in and says, hey, give my best to this person.
Yeah. There's a name with the product.
They killed it on this build.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I love that. Start doing that.
So you mentioned family business, right? And you've told me before that your dad started the company. How hard's that been to keep that, or are you still trying to keep that sense of family ran business as you're scaling? To me, that would be tough.
It is tough, but we still try to maintain that. Because the way he did it, where it kept it family, you're putting your last name on a product. It's easy to have pride in it then. But also I watched, he never took a vacation because when he did, the business basically shut down. And I wanted the ability, I'm like, I still want to do that. But I also want to be able to go see my kids' events.
Right.
So The one thing we've tried to do is we're very flexible with our team of when they come in. As long as they get their work done, we don't have like a straight 8 to 5 shift or something like that. And I also encourage that everybody that works for us, if your kid's playing a junior high basketball game, go watch it. Work will be here when you come back. And I think by doing that, one, gives everybody on the team a sense of, okay, this guy's son is really good at basketball. We can talk to him about that. But yet also, I think they're very aware that they have a lot of flexibility in what they do. So it helps, they'll come in on a Saturday afternoon, or we had one of our guys come in and he's on salary, so he wouldn't even got paid anymore. He came in on Thanksgiving morning because he had a few things he wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that wasn't something we asked him to do. He just knew he had a few things to do, and he didn't have anything going on that morning, so he came in.
How hard is accountability with that?
It's hard.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that when we first started doing it is, obviously they have to communicate that they're going to be gone. But the biggest thing we found is they have to communicate it with who they're working with. For example, like in our office, if one person's going to be gone, just let the other people know so they're not caught off guard, or they're not planning on being gone. And all of a sudden, we have 40% of our office staff gone and nobody's answering the phones.
Right.
And once we presented it that, because there was times when, when the kids are a certain age, they seem to have a lot more activities going on. And it seems like, well, that person's always gone. And I'd be like, well, during this basketball season, yes. But guess what? When dance season starts and your daughter's in this, you're going to want that flexibility.
Sure.
And it's worked out really well.
Yeah, you kind of, to go back what you said earlier with the whole entrepreneurial or ownership, you got to have a certain personality type that's not going to abuse, and almost would be ashamed if they did in front of their fellow teammates. That's kind of, which I'm not sure how big your setup is, but I'd imagine
we have 28 people.
Yeah, so you're at a nice size, but it's not too big that you can't control it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about regulations and marketing with a company like yours, because I've heard Josh Smith at MKC talk about their struggles in this. They're in the knife industry, you're in the firearms industry, and dealing with being shadow banned on social media and things like that, and having to kind of maneuver around different platforms to be able to market your company. It's
super challenging, and the worst part is, we just had YouTube videos taken down that have been up for 3 years. And they didn't really even tell us we violated any of their guidelines other than we're in the firearms business. The Instagram, Facebook, all those, there's so many restrictions. So we have to be very careful how we post and then get creative. And I know a lot of times influencers or different people like that will get a bad rap. But in our case, we're so shadow banned. Sometimes the only way we can get it out on social media is to go through some of these influencers or larger accounts. And it's not even just on social media that we encounter more regulations than most. So sometimes people will order from us and they're like, your shopping cart's a little more difficult than others. Why can't you just use Shopify or something like that?
That'd be great.
And I'm like, I would love to use one of those third-party platforms. But the problem is, if you ever read the fine print, firearms are not allowed.
That's crazy.
And some companies will get away with it, but then you also run the risk that at some point they could shut you down, and then you're scrambling trying to figure out on the back end how to make it work.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, and even everything that a lot of people don't think about is insurance companies. There's some that just because you're in the firearms business, they won't even quote your insurance.
That's great. The liability is what they're probably gonna.
And the funny thing is, it can even be on property insurance. So I'm like, isn't a building and a roof the same whether, no matter what you're doing inside? But yeah, it's just because you have that, they will, send you a no quote.
I can imagine the struggles. Do you have an in-house marketing team, or do you outsource it, or
yes,
mixture? Yeah. So thinking of ways, one thing I think about all the time is Red Bull, way different context here, but like if you look at a lot of Red Bull's marketing, you never see the product in their promotions and in their ads and stuff. So I could see a kind of a similarity there of trying to figure out how to market the brand and the product without showing the product.
Yeah.
That's got to be tough.
It is. And then like when you start thinking about like how-to videos, obviously if you can get them on YouTube, the SEO behind that is infinitely better than we can do in-house. But we have to host a lot of all that stuff ourselves just because, YouTube will take it down or they'll, do whatever with it. And then you'll get a lot of, there's been a push over the last few years of some other platforms but it doesn't seem like anybody, some of them have taken off and gained traction a little bit, but there's still nothing like YouTube, Instagram or Facebook.
Yeah. That's wild.
And you almost end up at times marketing into an echo chamber because people you're trying to reach are on those platforms. They're not on the new ones.
Yeah. Regulation and trying to pick up existing audience and new audience could be, I would imagine, extremely difficult.
It is. And we just have to find ways to work within the constraints we're given. Because all of us in the industry are playing by the same rules.
So getting into like innovation and product development a little bit, like do you have a specific philosophy on innovation? Like what makes a product kind of Volquartsen worthy, I guess, is because I don't have a better way to describe it, but like when you're thinking of innovation, is there like, it's got to check these boxes or we're not doing it?
The first box we have to check is that it's going to make a better product. There's a lot of machine shops at different times that'll get into the firearms industry and they'll make products that they're cool looking, but they really serve no functional purpose. So, and this goes back to the way my dad instructed us. Everything has to start with performance. If it's not going to enhance performance, it's a no-go. And a lot of people look at our stuff, and he was one of the first ones to put colors into firearms and do some of the more exotic things. I always laugh because we were at a show when I was young. He got called the King of Weird because he was doing colors long before it was popular. I found it funnier than he did, but oh well. So once we get that part of it figured out, then we're like, okay, how can we make it look unique, make it look different than what everybody else is doing? And the other thing we won't do is if we see somebody else with a new product or a new part and we're like, that's really cool, we'll find a way to work with them versus copying them, for lack of a better term. We've had a lot of stuff copied over the years, which in a way, I guess, is a credit to some of the designs we've done. But there's other times they'll be like, why don't you make this? I'm like, somebody already does it and they do a great job of it. Why? A lot of times we get asked, why aren't you in the AR market? And I'm like, what innovation really is left? There's hundreds and hundreds of companies that are doing that, and some of them do it extremely well. Are we just going to go in and copy what they're doing? Or even like right now, suppressors are all the rage.
Yeah.
And you see guys, they're like, oh, we're doing it this way, which is completely different than anybody else. But you're still getting the same results. So there's not a lot of innovation that I'm seeing there right now. So we're like, if we could come out with a better way, if we can build a better mousetrap, we'll do it. Otherwise, we'll find good companies to partner with. And, because that's the one, back to your question on marketing, that's the one thing that we've had to do that's different than the past is collaboration with other companies.
Yeah.
So we can piggyback off their social and they can do the same with us and do different things. Where I feel like that's one of the biggest changes our industry's had, because 25, 30 years ago, very rarely did you have companies sharing projects back and forth between them.
I still think it's rare. I kind of have a similar philosophy with Clean Eats in our CPG space right now. We call it marketplace internally, but like with our like proteins and, the other packaged products that we put our logos on. In fact, I just said this at the meeting yesterday. Yesterday was Thursday. And we've been talking about there's been talks of us doing certain products here and there. And I'm like, guys, my only rule is I don't want to just launch a product to launch it and put our name on it. You know what I mean? Other than it's just, especially in a saturated market of something that, everybody's doing, what's the point? You know what I mean? It's very expensive. The cash up front to get it launched is extreme. And if there's not something that we're going to do that's going to differentiate us from somebody else doing it,
right,
there's no point in doing it. So, I mean, I definitely agree with you there.
And I'm sure you can relate to this. If it's a product that we're not really excited about, we've done products where we kind of got talked into doing them. And then you'll catch yourself, you're never really promoting it or advertising it or talking about it at trade shows. And you're like, if we're not actively pushing this, why are we even listing it on our website or wasting manufacturing time?
Yep. I got one of those too. It's our superfoods. The superfoods product that we have within Clean Eats is probably, from like a reds and greens standpoint, second to none. If you look at the label and the ingredients and the panel that we have on ours is absolutely amazing. I mean, I've joked around and said it with Dog Walk AG1. That's just me. I'm biased. I'm excited about it. But, I hear you. And then I think we launched that product and then it just kind of sat there in no man's land. And we did a horrific job of promoting the fact of how good this product was when we took it to market. So we learned our lesson there, and we're actually, getting ready to redo that. But, that actually leads into my next question. Has there ever been like a product or design or idea that you were like absolutely obsessed with that bombed?
Yes. Probably more than one. And it's interesting because, so like we did a 22 mag pistol for a while. We put a lot of time and effort into it. We were excited about it, but it ended up being probably a little bit heavier than we'd like. And it was definitely louder than people anticipated. So it didn't do the numbers we thought it would. But then as soon as we discontinue it, we get all these emails and phone calls of, I was just getting ready to order one.
That's so typical.
I'm like, sure you were. You've been on the website for 3 years.
Yeah.
And there's other products that, definitely haven't done as well as we thought. So then I have to look at it. I'm like, okay, what did we miss on the design side, or did we miss it on the marketing launch and maybe we need to revisit the marketing side of it and give it a refresh and see what happens.
Yeah. Have you ever done it and it worked? Like relaunched it and changed the marketing around and then it worked?
There's been a few products that we've redesigned a little bit that have helped. Still we're probably not to what we initially thought.
Yeah.
And then the flip side of that is we have products that have always done really well. And then we get complacent on our marketing on those because like, they're selling so well. We don't.
Yep.
We just kind of let it run. And then all of a sudden, it trails off a little bit over time. And you look at the end of the year, like, what happened there? You're like, we haven't advertised that part or that product for 18 months. We're just expecting people to find it on our website or on one of our distributors' websites. And
just not nurtured to the point of.
Yeah. And the thing that we've learned too, which I'm sure you guys are aware of, is people are so overwhelmed with products being thrown at them that if you never reach out to them, their inbox is filled with 200 other products they can spend money on. You become an afterthought.
Yep. Steve and I keep looking at each other.
Yeah, like it's that volume.
We're in that process now. Every time I turn around, we're kind of at that crossroads, right? Like we've got phenomenal products and then they start out of the gate like gangbusters and then they die off. And it's like, okay, well, what happened? And then like you said, you look back at, all right, well, what was the marketing strategy there? Well, no shit, it died off. Look what we did.
Yeah. 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 And we've been very guilty of that. And sometimes where it'll happen is some of our most profitable parts or most popular parts are like our accessories that we make that people can put into their current firearms. But it's hard to do too much marketing and too many emails around a $12 extractor that looks like a little piece of, to somebody that doesn't know what they're looking at, it's just like a little piece of steel.
Right.
you can only, it's not like you can go out and take lifestyle shots of,
Right.
That
It's like a
particular
widget.
part.
Well, speaking of marketing, so like I'll use the word gun culture. I don't know how else to describe it, but like gun culture often it like pushes macho marketing. If you look at other companies, it's very alpha male driven, and you don't see that with Volquartsen. It's very modern. I'll use the word precise and sleek, and kind of almost sexy, if you will.
Yeah.
Like I know you. I'm assuming that was intentional, but talk about that for a minute. And
It's very intentional because, like you said, so many, like if you flip through a gun magazine or just spend some time online looking, so much of our industry is, and rightfully so, should be about self-defense or tactical gear. But the one thing we notice is it looks like everybody's always so serious. And, there's a lot of people out there that just love to go to the range and shoot.
mm-hmm.
They don't plan on putting on tactical pants and a vest and,
Yeah,
but they want to go to their range with their girlfriend, their wife, their son, daughter, whatever, and just put rounds down range and have fun. So a few years back, we became very intentional. I said, let's show people having fun at the range.
That's awesome.
Because for so many of us,
good.
that's why we got it. When we were kids, you went out and shot pop bottles or soda bottles, whatever, and you just had fun.
Yeah.
And so we even tried to dive into the whole, sometimes we'll do emails and I'll ask customers, I'm like, do you remember your first 22? And we'll get these emails from guys that are 70, 80 years old, like, oh yeah, I remember it. It was 19, whatever. Or, where did you learn to shoot? And they'll send us this long story about how it was their granddad that taught them. And I'm like, to your point about marketing Red Bull, I'm like, let's market that experience. Who doesn't want to have a Saturday morning out there with their grandson or granddaughter, uninterrupted? It's a place you're not on your phone. You're not sidetracked by everything else that's going on. I'm like, let's market that part of it. And let's show people in everyday, even like if you see a lot of our competitive shooters, we'll put them in their jerseys occasionally, but a lot of times they're on the range in just civilian, regular clothes. Because to me, it's unrelatable to the average guy that just wants to go to the range to see somebody that's all geared up.
yeah.
That nostalgia angle is the experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think it's huge. And I think, like you said, you're showcasing an experience and not trying to intimidate people that don't know what they're doing, or I'll even use the word can't afford it.
That's
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a lot of guys look at some of these ads and they'll see all this tactical gear, all the, I call them tactards, but they see all this and then they're like, well, damn, man, that's thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
I'm never going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But they can still get, a quality craftsmanship product that's fun, safe, and easy to use.
And the other thing that we look at is there's a lot of people that get into shooting as adults, but they grew up in a household where firearms may have been taboo.
Mm-hmm.
So it's already intimidating to get started. And now you think if you have to go out and buy all this other stuff or dress a certain way, it just becomes that much more of a barrier to entry. And you can relate to this. I always equate like shooting like going to the gym. For a new person going into the gym, it can be very intimidating.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I'm like, how do we welcome them in? Make them feel, there's no stupid questions. We want them to come back.
Yeah.
And try to portray that in our marketing.
I mean, I've experienced it firsthand when, every year at Winter Strong, you guys have done a great job there, and Scott always sponsors Winter Strong there and sets up the range part of that event. And there's a lot of people there that have zero experience shooting firearms, and just kind of standing back off to the side, and I've purposely watched people put one of these in their hand and shoot 100, 200, 300 yards, whatever that range is.
Yeah.
At the end of Bert's thing, and just seeing their facial, their reaction to it and them enjoying it is just awesome to see. I love it every year.
And I think that's a credit to Bert's event that it's, there's some people there that could be extremely intimidating.
Absolutely.
That are,
Yeah.
they've done the best of the best at whatever they've done. But for whatever reason, Bert's been able to they set that ego aside down there.
Yep.
So somebody that's never fired could stand next to a guy like Buck, who's a former recon sniper, and feel perfectly comfortable and trying, for the first time to shoot.
Yeah.
Which.
And what's funny about that is they don't even know who he is.
Right.
Like
Exactly.
If they knew and were familiar with who he is, it'd be like, oh, whoa.
Yeah. And I've always said, let's meet people where they are.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy, especially in, because like you said before, the macho industry of the firearms industry, it's easy when you get somebody new at the range, you want to show them how much you know.
Yeah.
Or how accomplished you are. But that's the worst way you can get somebody. Meet them where they're at and go from there.
Yep. What's your opinion on the audience? Like, how do you see firearms audience evolving, over the next few decades? Because this is only going to get, I'm going to use the word worse. It's going to get harder for you guys
Right. Yeah, that's fair.
in that industry to capture that audience. How do you see that evolving?
I think there's going to be more regulations. California has a bunch of stuff coming January 1. But I also think if we do it right, and I say we, I'm talking about an industry as a whole, not just our company. I think we're also at a time that we can continue to bring more and more new shooters in. There's a lot of people that we've met through different avenues who are shooters, but they're like, they might be somewhat famous people. They're like, don't ever mention this or show this because I could lose my contract, or I could lose, it could affect my next contract.
Right.
So, but they're into shooting firearms. I give a lot of credit to even like in the hunting space, like guys like Joe Rogan bringing, new eyes on it. And I think our industry has a long way to go in how we have our conversations with people. I think sometimes the arguments that we make to the anti-gun crowd just fall. It's an argument that's never going to persuade anybody to change their mind whatsoever. So I'm like, let's figure out why they think what they do and have conversations with them and do it from a place of listening to their perspective and trying to understand their perspective. Like I said earlier, if you're talking to somebody who grew up in a household where their parents were completely anti-gun, never let them around a gun, to tell them, oh, guns are, you need to go shoot or whatever. How about explain how much fun it is, or say, hey, let's start here. Let's start with something really small. If you like it, great. If not, that's okay too.
Mm-hmm. No, it's great. Very well put.
Yeah. And
I agree with you. All right. Getting into some like leadership, founder mindset stuff. Is there like a leadership mistake that you made that ended up changing kind of how you run Volquartsen?
Not just one.
that's the right answer. By the way,
that was loaded. I apologize.
Yeah. So probably the biggest mistake is back in 2015, we purchased a new building where we moved our offices and our machine work. But we still have our original location where we do all of our assembly, shipping, and test firing. And I never probably fully grasped the communication breakdown that was going to happen between the two buildings because they were about 4 miles apart. So it almost became like us against them. And that was on me for not addressing it early on. Like, hey, we're one company here. If we want to have a friendly competition of sales did this or production did this, that's fine. But we can't try to undermine each other. And the second, I'd say the other biggest mistake I had is, and this is something I'm still working on, when something does come up, address it as it comes up. Sometimes I can get caught in being like the nice guy loop where I just assume they think how I think or they're going to figure it out. Where just having the uncomfortable conversations that nobody wants to have earlier on than what we have would have saved me a lot of headache and stress.
I've been sitting here going like this because
it's crazy. I mean, we're like bobbleheads on this side. Yeah.
The commonalities that we have in these scenarios is creepy almost. Like similar situation. You know, we have Clean Eats Franchising, which is our brick and mortar franchises, and then we've got Clean Eats Kitchen, which is the distribution side. And like you, right now, currently they're in two different buildings, and they're about 4 miles apart.
It's weird.
And, you know, they have an in-house customer service team over there. We have ours. We're kind of one combined marketing team, but like the communication breakdown between marketing and distribution, the guys in the warehouse, if marketing puts out a promotion, the warehouse guys aren't aware of it and they get blasted with 600 orders. They're going to be like, what the hell? You guys didn't tell us about this. So I'm working through that issue in live time right now as we speak. So
I'm laughing because our sales team said, you know what, just, I don't know, a couple months ago, they said, you know what'd be great? If we knew a product was going to hit the website before the customers call and ask us about it.
Yep.
And I said, yes, I had no answer other than, yes, we need to be much better.
Yep.
And that's where, and it's a fine line though, because there's so many ways to communicate now, with meetings, but then you can use like a Slack or email or whatever. Then at times you feel like, okay, am I overdoing it where everything's just getting lost? But then something like this happens where we launch a product and some of the sales staff is like, I didn't know anything about that till they called. So I'm like, that's probably not good.
See, it's a universal issue. Splintering between sales and marketing is because they're working in silos. Yeah, it's a tough one. You hear a lot of product companies in particular face it.
So as a founder, and I ask this because, I am one myself, but what kind of keeps you sharp as a leader? Like books, mentors, trainings? Is there something that you've worked into your everyday routine that is just part of your deal?
I read a lot of, like business books, a lot of personal development. But I still think the number one thing is either mentors or even surround yourself with the right people. And one of the big mistakes I made early on was I didn't ask for a lot of help from other people or ask for advice. I always had this in my mind that we're a family-owned business, so that one makes us different. We're in the firearms business, so what Don's doing at Clean Eats is different than what's going to help us. But as I've gotten older, I realized, the product's different. There's some nuances that are, like the regulations we have to go through, different things. But the foundation of good business is universal. Mm-hmm. So, like if I call you or if I call somebody else, they may have nothing to do with the firearms world, but seeking advice, I didn't do that near early enough. So now I've probably gone overboard on it. And I actually had to scale back because I used to listen to podcasts all the time, and it was almost like then I'd get conflicting information and I'd be like, well, now what do I do? I got to pay for one more group to be a part of.
Yeah, you can reach a point where you're consuming too much personal development, in my opinion.
So what I've done is I have now a couple very trusted people that I go to that aren't necessarily in the firearm space, but they're people I can trust to tell me the truth and not just what they think I want to hear.
Yep, same. Yeah, I've got a group of guys like that myself they won't sugarcoat it. They'll just hit me with it.
And that's, I think we all need that.
Yeah. And
even that, when I started that, I wasn't always like 100% transparent with, because I think most businesses go up and down, it's not always what the internet makes it out to be. And when I was younger, I'd be like, well, I probably shouldn't tell somebody that, but I'm like, how do I get help if I'm not honest and transparent with exactly how things are right at this, moment? Sure.
Right. Was there ever a moment where you were like questioning everything? You're like, this is it. Like, I'm done. Like, I'm just, this isn't working. I'm over it.
Not really. There's been times that I'm like off and on, but nothing like one real event where I'm like, I'm just done. And when I do get that way, without sounding too corny, I try to flip it of, I still love what I do. And there's going to be stress no matter what business I go into. And part of that is stress I put on myself because I'm very type A of constantly pushing and constantly trying to evolve. And sometimes my wife will be like, can't you ever just sit back and like put your feet up? I'm like, I did for like 20 minutes. Let's go.
Cat nap. Yeah.
And probably part of it is I feel a lot of obligation because it's a family business and to the people that work for us and different things. So I've never really had that thought of I'm just going to
sell it and move on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had that thought of maybe I should hire certain people underneath me that handle like all that stuff.
Yeah. Makes sense. All right. We'll get into some fun questions here before we wrap it up. What's the most badass moment you've ever seen someone do with a Volquartsen rifle?
There was a video I got of a 12-year-old girl out west that hit, I believe it was either a 12 or 18-inch steel plate at like 728 yards or something like that.
Was it 22?
Yes.
Wow.
And I assume the trajectory was something like, but those are the things that, like when a dad takes time to send me an email of his daughter shooting, and it doesn't have to be something that cool. It can just be, hey, I finally got my daughter into shooting. Like those are the things that drive me.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. What's a firearm myth that drives you absolutely nuts?
It doesn't even involve our product. That suppressors make everything silent.
True.
Because movies have done us an injustice on that. And, and there's a lot of little things like when it comes to the gun control thing where the anti-gun crowd has these ideas.
Yeah.
But I realize they are just repeating propaganda they've heard. But I think the one that, even like when we do suppressor shoots, guys will be like, oh, that you can still hear it. I'm like, well, yeah, you can still hear it. And you're only shooting a 22 with us. If you go down and shoot a 5.56 or something, I'm like, it just suppresses it. It does not silence it.
Hence the word
suppressor. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. If you weren't running Volquartsen, what the hell would you be doing right now? I got a funny answer for myself, but I'll let you answer.
It would probably be something because my second passion is like fitness and health. So it'd probably be something, a fitness coach or something along those lines.
Nice. Mine's taters.
Oh yeah. You've had that.
Dude, I have this. I have this food concept that has been in my little nugget up here for 4 or 5 years, and it's all geared around potatoes. The marketing for this is genius.
It's more than 4 or 5.
One of these days, I'm going to bring this to life. But so if you ever see the brand taters, you're going to know who it's coming from.
I like it.
All right, man. Every guest, we always like to wrap up the show. Every guest gets one hot take. What is Scott Volquartsen's hot take? Could be anything.
Honestly. And this is a conversation I just had with my daughter, so this one's easy. Get out in the real world and actually experience people. The world's not as bad as we think it is from looking at Twitter or whatever. Like we just had this conversation. I was in LA with some friends and they were talking about the airports. This is during the strike. You can't go anywhere. You can't do this. We had 0 delays. We had no problems while we were out there. I'm like, just get out and talk to people. And not everything has to be a debate or an argument. We're roughly the same age. We grew up where you didn't know how your neighbor voted. We didn't know what, some of they weren't trying to teach us their moral high ground and vice versa.
Right.
And if you just get out and experience and talk to people, I think everybody would be happier.
Totally agree.
100%. We bring that up quite a bit on this.
Yep.
And, when you're talking to them, they can't feed you an algorithm of either trying to upset you or just everything that agrees with you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
I don't know.
I agree.
Yep.
Well, man, thank you again for the time. This was great. It was great to catch up with you. And
thank you guys for having me on.
Scott, it's a pleasure, man. I love your aspect and outlook.
Well,
thank you.
Before we jump, where can people find you and Volquartsen at?
The easiest place to find us is just at Volquartsen.com. If you go to Instagram, it's Volquartsen_firearms. And many times you have to type out the entire thing to find us. And my personal Instagram is just Scott Volquartsen, all run together.
Yeah, we'll make sure we put all that in the show notes so people can find it and it's easy to click on. But Man, thank you again. I appreciate the time and look forward to seeing you here in a few weeks. I think we'll run into each other at Winter Strong here. And what is that?
I'm looking forward to it. That'll be here before we know it.
Yeah, no, it's a little over a month away, I think. So,
yeah. Thank you, guys.
All right,
Thank you, Scott.
Thanks, guys. Till next time.